which happens quickly. So hello, my name is Lowell, pronouns he, him, and today we are playing the first of 8 sessions of Legacy Life Among the Ruins by Jay Isles. And this is a Powered by the Apocalypse game of generational play. And it is pretty thick. I've now run it. This will be the 4th time I've run it. The first time I did a terrible job with it. Terrible job. And it was the very first game I ran for the Gauntlet with Jason and Rich and David. But I managed to make it through that. And it was before I'd played any PbtA really. So I figured once that experience has happened, I can run anything. So I'm good. I've run it now a couple of times and I've learned something each time I've played it. The game unfolds itself in really interesting ways. This is part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. The Gauntlet is online gaming club, online gaming organization. We have a calendar that we've developed that is our own app that is sort of supported by a Patreon where people can come on and get or a little bit early access to games. But then if there are still seats open, anybody can join up on that. You can find out more about this at gauntlet-rpg.com. So let me go through our CATS document, our setup. Some of you already know some of this. Before I go too much further, David, I know that you've played Legacy before.
A little, yeah, but
I've
played I've played a couple of times
okay.
and a couple of Legacy adjacent games as well. So yeah.
Okay. Leandro, I think you have as well, right?
Not exactly. I ran Void Heart Symphony, which is like an adjacent to an adjacent of a Legacy game. It's like 2 iterations away from
Legacy. You are several steps, yeah. Alan, how about yourself?
I've played in a couple of sessions and I've played a couple of sessions face-to-face.
Okay.
Free from the yoke on that occasion.
Okay.
So
all right.
Familiar but not comfortable yet.
Oh no, yeah. And Rye, have you played?
I played a couple of sessions on the Gauntlet, but we didn't get to finish the campaign, so
okay.
we just got started on it. So.
Okay, so that's good because you have then the most important thing, which is sort of a sense of the structure of play and how that goes. So that helps me quite a bit. So obviously our concept is that we're doing generational play in a world that is after an apocalypse, that we're going to come and figure out what that is when we go through the character creation process and the building. We have families, and our families have kind of wide sweeping abstract choices. The moves that we make there have big effects. Then with that, we have characters that come from that family. We're going to be doing the family play, and then at a certain point, we'll swap down to character play. Character play is interesting because we have the opportunity for other players to join in when we zoom in on, like David's character. Alan might say, well, my character in fact is on scene. It makes sense that they're also in there. But Leandro might say, I don't think my character is there, so I'll make a quick character up and bring them in, and they come from David's family. That play is really interesting when we get to that process. That really changes things up. I think it is, if there is a secret sauce to this game, I really think that's where it lies. If you do make up a quick character, when we zoom back out, you get the opportunity to get some benefits. If your character wasn't the spotlight character, even if you played a quick character, you're going to get some opportunities. And we're going to cycle through that. At a certain point, we may feel that a threat has been dealt with, or the world has changed and we want to move forward. In that case, we do a process of the turning of the age. And the turning of the age has some roles and choices. But it tell you the mechanical secret that you need to keep in mind while you play. You will have wants, which are needs, and you'll have things that are resource that you have more of, the surpluses. That's a really important factor. It's probably the most important mechanical factor in this game, because the balance of your needs and surplus, when we come to that changing the age, we're going to be rolling based on that. And that's going to have significant mechanical effect for you. So if you're thinking about your moves, if you're like unsure what you want to do with your family, things that get you surpluses or solve the problems of needs are what you want to be leaning into at the family level. I think that's a really good guidepost. And I didn't realize that the first couple of times I ran this. So I wanted to bring that up to the front. So we're going to be talking about tone here now, because one of the things is that our tone is going to be very much determined by the playbooks that we have. There are some of these playbooks that are more wild than others for the family, that change something about the nature of the world. So I want to pause here, and I know a couple of you have said, "Oh, I think this is the playbook that I want to go with for my family." Let's talk about that, get that choice on the table, and then from that we can talk a little bit about what kind of tone will emerge from that. So let me refer back to our thing. I know, David, you only said that you didn't want the Starfarers, but Rye, you actually narrowed it down to 3 choices, which I'm so happy to see somebody narrow things down in this process. Do you have any further narrowing? Any things you want to say about the 3 that you've leaned into?
If I can press the right button here to unmute myself. I think I was looking over their moves and stuff again, and I was thinking maybe towards the Enclave of Bygone Lore. I think that was one of my ones that I posted.
Okay.
So
let's put it.
If someone else wants that one, I'm happy to do one of the other ones.
Okay. David, you've eliminated 1 or 2 there on yours. So do you have a sense of a couple you'd be interested in right now?
Yeah, I was considering maybe the Coalition. They look quite interesting. Despite having in the email I sent, I know I said that I probably wouldn't go straight for the Pioneers. I'm actually warming up on the Pioneers again because they are one of my favorites, and I didn't get to play them for very long, so possibly the Pioneers as well. I think those are the 2 that I'm like most actively interested in at the minute. But as I said, I'm flexible when it comes to them.
Okay.
Most of them I'm happy to go with. As I said, the only one I don't have a particular interest in playing is the Starfarers. I'm happy if someone else wants to, but they don't do it for me particularly.
Okay. Alan, what are you thinking? Do you have a couple of choices or one choice?
I'm torn between Lawgivers of the Wasteland, off the original kind of book list, but I am quite intrigued by the Serene Choir. I'm still feeling I have some religious expression to make.
Oh yeah, they are interesting because they are a little more inhuman than some of the other types, but they're interesting. Tyler's doing one of those, and he's done some interesting Gnostic stuff in his with that. Okay, well, let me put down those 2 there. Leandro, what are you thinking?
Geez, there's a lot of choices there. They're all quite evocative.
And that's not all of them. I've cut several of them.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at the handouts I had, and it's like, ooh, there's more. There's Titan Hunters. Well, we're not dealing with those, but
the Titan Hunters are amazing.
They're amazing, but they're also one that you have to lean everybody into that one.
Yeah, no, for sure. I wouldn't want everyone to force them to start fighting kaiju. I think on a cursory glance, maybe the Starfarers actually.
Okay.
Because I was kind of interested in playing not humanoid people.
Okay.
So I was considering that, but I'll have to come back to me in a moment.
Okay. So it does sound like, and I'm not going to make you choose all you choose right now, but it does sound like there's going to be a little more of the fantastical bit. Like it is going to bring in what I describe sometimes as the Numenera apocalyptic, like the weirdness and things like that. So let's keep that in mind as a tone thing throughout when we're making choices, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Related to that, the safety tools that we're going to be using are the X card, and the X card here is for problematic material, things you find objectionable, language or things you find problematic or ableist or anything like that. But it can also be if you feel that something has gone off tone, that it has gone against what we've established as kind of the tone of play. All of those are reasonable to X card. I also want to mention something that Rich taught me is if something happens and the first couple of times you're okay with it, but then later on you're like, okay, now I'm not. It is always legit to X card, even if we've done it a couple times. If at some point it becomes debug, you can X card it then. As a complement to that, in our character keeper, you will see that we have a tab with lines and veils. Lines being anything we definitively don't want to bring onto the table. And that's important because there are some high level issues like slavery, racism, things like that, that this game could conceivably touch on, that we want to be sure of what we don't want to have. So as we're doing the character creation process, feel free to stop over on that lines and veils tab and mark anything that you're like, okay, this is a hard line for me, or a veil. I'm okay with the idea being presented, but when we go to it, I want to fade to black. I don't want to dwell on it. So that's important for our play here. And before we actually get to playing on the first session, I will stop and I will walk through that. And that line and veil document is a living document, so it can be added to as we go along. The last thing to say is this is open door. So if at any point you need to step away, that's another thing that is available if you need to catch your breath or whatever. I'm not the most intense GM, but I've been in games that I've had to walk away from to catch my breath. Like when we played Trophy, that's the first time I had to like get up and process my feelings before I came back to the table. But that's all out there. So we're going to move here to the family creation process. I want to, before we get to that and I come back and I'm going to let you kind of chew on things and make those choices, I want to talk about what that's going to involve from your side. The steps are that you're going to choose your family. You're going to choose your stats, and those are shown on the family playbook tab. It has the choices. Those stats say something about what the fall was like, and that will help build a picture for ourselves. The next thing after that is you're going to pick what are called traditions. Those are actually in the PDF, the playbook. That includes your populace, your style, and your governance for your family. Those are in the playbook PDF, but they're not in the tab. Once we get done with those very basic choices, at that point, we'll have everybody introduce their family and say what they're like, what they're imagining. And then we're going to move to making choices on history and putting things on the map. So there's just a few things before we actually go to the map building and introduction process. So let me let you, since it doesn't seem like we've got a lot of overlap, like potential conflict, I'm going to let you loose for 5 or 10 minutes to look at those. If you have any questions, you can hit me up with that. You can choose a column, or sorry, choose a tab to start working from. Do that stat choices, make the choices about traditions, and then I will come back and we'll see if we can do the introductions. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, Lowell, is it okay if we edit the tab with our name?
Exactly. Yes, you should absolutely do that because that will change the references and it will automatically update those. So yeah, please do.
Oh, the other thing I just wanted to ask before
Sure.
we sort of get going on it, Lol, is I know when you were setting this up, you were mentioning about possibly doing it more as a fantasy-based apocalypse rather than a future-ish one. Is that something you still want to? I'm happy either way, but I just thought before I started making decisions, I'd check in.
Well, that's a good question. I would ended up leaning a little more towards default just for simplicity, but certainly if we can have that conversation, are people more comfortable going from the defaults to post-apocalyptic, or would you like more fantasy elements in there? How does everyone feel?
I was quite taken with your mention of Numenera. It's not a game I've spent much time on, but the premise always intrigued me, which seems to be that kind of freaky fantasy technology merger.
Yeah, I think saying that it's science fantasy in that sort of dancers at the end of time kind of romantic weirdness, and leaning that way leaves things open. Does that seem like a fair way to handle it?
No, that's cool. That's cool for
Okay.
me. I can work with that.
Okay. So I'm going to let you all go for a bit, and I'll sit here awkwardly. All right. I'm going to start. I'm going to start and actually go from the furthest right and move my way leftwards. And have you tell us about your family, how you're imagining it, what you call them, and those questions about populace, style, and governance, and to give us a sense of that. So, Alan, tell us about your family right now, how you have them pictured.
Yes, so I'm playing the Serene Choir, which are called by other people other people, other beings, other creatures in the homeland, the children of the gods. Whether we are human is an open question, but we crashed into the homeland in a broken shard of the presence's realm from whence we hail. That means that our reach and grasp are one, but our sleight is -1. We are noticeable. We're noticeable because we all wear dark hooded robes. It's difficult to tell one from another, frankly. We wear dark hooded robes over metallic masks and body modifications. And there is, in fact, a suggested picture in the NPC locations section, just to give a sense of what we look like. Who knows what's beneath the mask? Our doctrine is to seek out the monsters that would hurt those innocents in this land that yet survive. And that means that when we battle a supernatural threat, we will say whether our supernal wrath, to be defined, terrifies or inspires all witnesses. Our lifestyle is settled. We are still principally located in the shard of that realm of the presence in which we appear to have arrived. And that place is a sanctuary. None, as it says here, none forbidden can enter, no matter how hard they try. So we sally forth from that sanctuary with a mission to protect the innocent.
So do you imagine that prior to the apocalypse, the presence as you feel it was known here in this world? Was it a fragment of the divine here? Was it the divine in the old times?
I think that our philosophy would say that the presence is universal and entire. And so whether the locals thought that they worship the presence or recognize the presence is kind of an academic question, frankly.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. On this council that governs your people, who's on that council? Is it the elders? Is it the most ethically forthright? Who manages that?
I think that probably our populace is described as veteran warrior monks, hence the sally forth. And so I think there's an inevitability about the most legendary of these saviors of the people of the homeland are the ones who end up sitting on the council. But of course, they all have a very particular, guided by an absolute ethical imperative, which is to protect those innocents that yet survive.
And this is a question we'll have to discuss. Future is how innocence is defined, right?
Oh yes,
Okay.
But we have absolute clarity on innocence. That is the joy of the presence.
Perfect. Moral certitude. Okay, that gives us a good sense. We'll get the other introductions, and then we'll move on to doing the maps, which are the history questions there, and marking things on that. Leandro, tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I'll start with a caveat that is a bit woolier than I expected because I started creating PbtA and realized I was just recreating Daleks. So forgive me if this is a bit. It's not as firm as I'd like to be, but yeah, I'm playing the family's playbook. I'm playing as the stranded starfarers. These folks are called the Dancing Wave. They come from a homeland that is artificial and hostile to alien and human alike for various reasons. I guess I should explain more. This is explained better by what they look like and their traditions. So they are a race of biomechanical cephalopods. And it's a variety of cephalopods. You've got your mollusk types, your squid types, your octopus types. Giant squids are kind of like what giants are to our mythology. It's like just no, they don't know people like that. But yeah, I've imagined they used to be like this populace of not exactly like peaceful, but they're not belligerent to anyone, but like outside forces have kind of like forced them to develop technology, to develop ways of interacting with other people. That's why their style is with nanogel suits. They were to interact with other sentient beings. They had to create this sort of technology that lets them take on the forms of others. Hence why here in the in Earth, so to speak, they usually wear these suits, and they're not hard to figure out. They look kind of plasticine in a way. They look like, I'm just referencing more Doctor Who stuff, more like plastic auton types.
Okay.
That's kind of what their nanogel suits look like. They usually adapt it to form whatever like species they're interacting with, because they've kind of been forced to spread out. Their homeland is artificial because it's something they've had to recreate. It's lost in their history where they came from. And that's why their doctrine's like stellar locus, because they've lost so much back then that like they're kind of in a fight or flight sort of position where whenever they expand to another world, they have to consume and survive and like do the barest minimum to like interact with anyone out there. But part of their code is like they are looking out for themselves. It's about, and the thing is, their culture used to be quite different, but like war and history has kind of forced them into becoming scavengers. And their scavenging process usually takes a while. It does require quite a bit of infiltration. They're usually more careful about it. But then the fall happened, and now they're stuck here. At least a couple of cells here. This isn't the main wave. Like, it's a wave. So they kind of spread around the galaxy. So there wasn't much of a head start before this apocalypse happened.
You say that the nanogel suits take on the form of the people that they're talking to. So, I mean, is the cephalopod riding in the suit, or does it reshape the cephalopod? Are they soft enough that the whole thing reshapes? What is that like?
Definitely, it's a case of this cephalopod is in the suit. It is kind of like riding it. I'm imagining the internals of it just. To human science, it makes no sense.
Okay.
I'm imagining it's like riding a mech, so to speak, and the cephalopod is the human. But these mechs can be reshaped, and I'm imagining it actually takes. Sorry, this mech thing I just came up with literally right at the second. Sure. So now I'm imagining the process of reshaping these suits aren't as fast as they would like to be. They don't like just meet someone and we gotta like. I don't know, regrow the suit. It is a lot of like modifications and like, all right, we gotta like modify this face to be more appealing to some folks, or like modify the number of limbs.
So let's say that you've got this person in one of these suits. Is the suit like theirs and it's the one they keep and they shape and they adapt, or do they swap these out consistently? Is it equipment, or is it like important, like more ritual in some ways?
I think there's like a bit of both. Like there are like BattleTech style heirloom suits, I suppose, who've kind of been modified over generations. But there are definitely some like cheap ones that are like, yeah, you can have this like child suit, or this like the suit that's shaped like a dog or something like that. You can have that, and it's a bit more fake. It's less adapted to the world, or maybe like, here's a surplus suit we got from a different planet. So no, you have to ride this bug thing with crystalline wings, which looks great, but is not suited to this planet at all.
I love that you set yourself a high bar to try and find pictures for your characters. So that's
just means I have a broad palette. It's
okay. Fair enough. All right. Well, that gives me a good sense, and we'll come back with the history questions. Rye, tell us about your character. Am I saying that right? Is just Rye, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Good.
not short for anything. It's just bread or whiskey, whichever one you want. So.
Fair enough.
I'm going to be playing the Enclave of Bygone Lore. They are called the Seeds of Sunset in kind of in the direction of trying to bring forth new civilizations after the kind of fall and the sunset of the previous world. I've chosen that the fall unleash previous unknown sorcery and knowledge, which we seek out. So we have a reach of 1, grasp minus 1, and sleight 1. And so I'm not sure if the arrival of the presence is what's made that new sorcery available to us. But we are out there searching it, trying to harness it, trying to use it to better the lives of people around us and create new ways of living in this new world. We try to work as much as we can with the other civilizations out there, building grand projects, supporting them in their work, creating new technology for them to use and harness to really just get civilization back up off the ground and get rid of all of the want and the hunger and the need that we see as we travel across the wasteland or whatever is out there. Our technology doesn't tend to look super flashy, but because we travel around a lot and flashy things are probably bring unwanted attention. And then on our traditions, I was thinking that these groups formed either out of kind of post-collapse academic institutions. Maybe they even were starting to research some of this sorcery and were just getting their hands on it and trying to like this is like the edge of physics or something that they were studying. And so there were a few kind of scattered groups across the region that knew about it and were starting to figure it out. And then everything went sideways. But they were able to somehow stick together and get access to it with now that it was more easy to connect to it and use it to start building technologies with it and things to help people with. So I think I'm not sure about the look yet, but
Sure.
the one I chose so far was monastic robes with circuitry. And then they have an academic bureaucracy.
Do you think the academic bureaucracy has, is it a testing system? Is how do you, a reporting system, publish or perish? What is how does academia make itself known in your family now, you think?
I think there's like, it's like a real world testing system where you reach a certain age and it's time for you to take the knowledge that you've been given and go out in the world and build something new and try to harness it and create new technology. And then once you've done that and kind of proof of concept or whatever, you can bring it back and then it's integrated and the benefits are then spread out to the other places where we're traveling.
Do you think that this sorcery, this energy, possibly connected to the presence and so on, its arrival was it a cause of the fall, or did the fall, when it happened, release or create this?
I think it's a chicken and egg thing. I think no one's really sure, but they definitely were connected in some way. Whatever happened during the fall, either the energy was there before and people just couldn't access it, and then whatever happened in the fall made it available, or somehow the energy broke free. And I think there's long debates in when our culture. I think maybe we get together every year or like once a year on like the winter solstice or the summer solstice or something, and there's like long debates, and that's like what we do. Lots of alcohol and debating.
A symposium holiday. I like it.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. All right. We'll come back to you on the history questions here in a minute, which brings us to David. David, tell us about your family.
Certainly, yeah. So I decided to go for the pioneers of the deeps, though not necessarily very deep in this case, as they are known as the river folk. And spoilers, one of my history questions. They are primarily live on the lakes and rivers that sort of make up the watercourses of the homelands. They are so the doctrine that I've taken for them is preservers of the sea, which basically says that the sea's wealth is ours for the taking. And I've gone for a nomadic lifestyle, which says that we can find wealth beyond measures in the vastness of the oceans, or in this case, again, the lakes and rivers of the homeland. And I think the way that this looks is that they are essentially a nomadic, a group of nomadic tribes, essentially, or nomadic fleets is probably a better way of putting it, of riverboat dwellers. They have sort of sort of houseboat type things that sail the watercourses of the homeland. They're particularly good at sort of recycling, reusing, and equipment, and things like aquaculture and that sort of thing. Their sort of primary focus is in keeping that kind of sustainable and mobile lifestyle. They are so the populace, as I said, is an intrepid crew of riverboat pilots. The way they dress, it's described. I've taken the prompt that said diaphanous nets and fabrics, and the way I think this looks is because they spend most of the time living in and around the water. There aren't really many cultural nudity taboos. The clothes they wear are designed to be taken off very fast if they end up in the water, and to dry out quickly if they get wet. So lots of kind of fairly light sheer fabrics. When it gets colder, they have big woolen sort of draperies that they wear that kind of do the thing of like getting warmer as they get wet, so that they can kind of survive the cold. They are their governance is enlightened anarchy. Which, the way I see this, is it's very much it's almost like a sort of clan type system, except there's certainly no formal system of clan leaders. Decisions are made essentially on sort of a family, sort of small decisions are made on a family level. When bigger decisions need to be made, spokespeople from different families get together and they discuss what they're going to do. There are definitely, this is anarchy in the dictionary correct definition of the sense, in that there are definitely rules and customs that they live by, but there aren't any formal governance or enforcement of those rules. It's self-regulated.
So different fleets representing different like groups or tribes or clans and things like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Are the vessels natural, adapted from material things? Are they like one big vessel or a set of smaller vessels? Are they lashed together? How are you imagining that?
So I think they are I think they're custom built vessels. They are sort of they're very much designed to be to do what they do. Probably a mix of materials. I'd imagine more wood and plant-derived materials than metal.
Okay.
But there probably are some that are made of metal. In general, I think the kind of boats vary a bit. So obviously you'll have kind of things that are like essentially just little fishing boats. You'll have kind of almost like sort of narrow boat type things sort of that can maybe house a small family on them. There are larger boats as well. Obviously, the bigger the boats, the more they tend to be focused on the larger lakes, which are probably the sort of the larger boats are probably the closest thing that they have to kind of permanent settlements. They're still mobile, but they're and yeah, in general they'll kind of travel together in small fleets generally. Obviously, occasionally I'll have a boat go off on its own, and yeah, they tend to sort of tether together when they moor at a place, and they will settle. They'll settle in an area for a while. Weeks, months, year or so, depending on exactly what their plan is at the time. Sometimes they'll settle an area for a while and sort of farm algae or whatever on the rivers. Sometimes they'll travel around a bit more regularly.
Does suggest that there are at least some strong places where wood is available, some forests that exist in our area, some sources of wood there. Okay. What we're going to do next is we are going to move to doing the history questions, which are the sort of the landmarks. Well, we're going to do the landmarks, and then we're going to do the history of the relationship ones. And each of you has a set of questions that are in your playbooks about the before, the fall, and then a threat. And we're going to have you say that, and then we're going to have you put it on this map. And I'll give a link here. Here is the link to the map. My suggestion is the easiest way to do things on the map. If you haven't done map making in Google Drawings, it can be unfun sometimes. But the easiest thing is to go up and find a shape, choose a wacky shape, put it in, and then put some text to identify it. Or like if you want to put lots of rivers around, to things like that. This is obviously not going to be to scale, but you definitely want to make sure you leave some room for other people. And each one of these landmark questions that we're going to ask will generate something you need to put on that map. So, Alan, let's go to our preaching to the choir, our celestial choir. From your before choices, what is the before for your family?
Yeah, before I've excised gods from our title. We're going to be sky children.
Okay.
We fell into the sky. I think that's probably. I don't want to infer gods.
Sure.
Before, presumably there'll be somewhere on the map. I need to locate where the shard we arrived in that's still our base is.
Yep.
But I think that probably a giant automated catacombs guarding divine relics. I think that we may not have been the only shard.
I like that. Is there what is these defended divine dungeons? What is it called?
The Dark Crystal.
Okay. All right. Do you want to? Where are you going to put that? Center, side? Where do you think you want to locate that?
I think I'll put it in the middle, so everyone can be afraid of it.
Okay, fair enough. So grab a shape, put it on there. I'll put the text through. We don't have Patrick Knowles in this game. Patrick will go through and change everybody's font, so it's all the same font. He gets super detail oriented on that, but don't worry about that. But yeah, put that on there, and then I'd also have you tell us where your shard sanctuary is.
I think it's probably in a corner, therefore, so it's a long way away from the dark crystal, relatively speaking.
Perfect.
I tell you what, no, I'm going to put the dark crystal at an edge.
Okay.
And locate civilization closer to the middle of the map.
Okay.
So and we'll call that the sanctuary.
Okay. And we'll go through, reduce font sizes, reshape things as we need to when things get crowded. So we're all good on that. Leandro, what is your before bit? Your landmark.
I think the one that drew my eye is a grand project to reach the stars. I think this might have been what drew the dancing wave to Earth. Imagining it's like this. I think around the time of the fall, budgets got tight, so we can't really be sending people into space anymore. So they commissioned this like grand sort of signal tower. I know there are like actual programs here that they're trying to do that. Like I know SETI, like Search for Extraterrestrial Life, but this is like on a massive scale, like this like big skyscraper sort of conning tower trying to project out and see just how far it could reach. I think they called it Project Sunbeam. And yeah, let's see where I can put that. Probably somewhere near the middle-ish. I'm going to make a funny arrow shape.
And how big are we talking? Like city-sized? Mountain-sized?
Yeah, I was imagining like, yeah, kind of like what if you laid a city vertically instead of horizontally?
Okay.
Yeah. It stands out, I suppose. It was like this big project. It's like what is like the tower equivalent of a small moon, I suppose.
Okay.
And let's see. Oh yeah, picking an arrow shape.
Almost like the sort of beanstalk mass launchers that they have in some of the science fiction things.
Yeah.
Or the spire.
Yeah, it is. Okay. It is kind of like this spire. Hold on. This shape is too blocky, but it kind of gets the tone. Hold on. Nope, not the shape. Either way, it's probably somewhere near the middle-ish.
Okay. Put it in there. We've got some scale size there. Project Sunbeam. Okay. So choose your location, then I will move on. Which spot do you want it at? There?
Yeah, around here-ish.
Okay.
And it's leaning right now.
Okay. That make a note of that. That's important. Right. For the Enclave, what is your before choice?
I'm going with a secret research center full of untamed wonders.
Ooh.
And I think this was called the Meld. And it was where they were starting to be able to kind of, I guess, I don't know if bioengineer life is the right word for it, but they were taking it. And so basically, like you would turn a human being into like a solar cell or some way so that humans could actually start harnessing energy and repurposing it and other living things too. So taking plants and things and starting to like harness the edge of physics where they were allowing like a combination almost of machine isn't the right word, but like energy beings and real life forms. So.
Biomechanical energy forms. Okay. And do you think that this is this something that your people protect? Is it something that your people want to get to?
I think it's listed as untamed wonders. So
okay.
Yeah, I think it's something that we've scouted out and we're aware of, but we haven't had the resources to like totally go in there we've encountered a few things that were on the edge of dangerous, and or at least incomprehensible, and we couldn't communicate with them, and so we retreated for the time being.
And what does it look like on the surface? Like what is it when people see it from a distance? What does it look like?
The thing I was kind of thinking of as inspiration is I think it's the big Google Center in San Francisco. It's like a giant donut.
Mm-hmm.
That, except for like much more organic, so almost like has giant columns growing out of it into the earth, and cables wrapped with vines, and I think the entire skin of it is like a gigantic living or like organism itself. So it's almost like the whole thing is alive too.
I like it. That's great. Excellent. All right. And you're taking that down the corner there, it looks like. Okay.
Yeah.
Which brings us to David. And what is the before for the river folk?
Certainly. So yeah, again, for my stat question, I've established that there are sort of rivers and lakes around, so I'll draw a few of those on as I go.
Okay.
But yeah, the thing I'm choosing from the before is a oops, I've lost it. I broadly remember what it was anyway. That's it. A ship graveyard, which I think in this case is. I think on one of the big lakes. I mean, I'm thinking sort of, the Great Lakes in scale here, sort of thing, an inland sea, basically. And it's probably the ruins of an old docks or similar. But there are a lot of sunken ships down there, which I think in a limited way we have gone in and salvaged some of the ships, but it's a dangerous place to be, I think, or at least an ominous place to be, put it that way. And so I think it's not somewhere that we've kind of gone in great numbers, but occasionally people will kind of mount an expedition there to bring back a hulk or something and start to repurpose it.
Lots of different kinds of ships, or lots of a single kind of ship?
I think quite a lot of I think probably not much in the way of military ships. It's not kind of like there's not sort of dreadnoughts or anything down at the bottom there. It's primarily fishing vessels and cargo vessels. Some of the cargo vessels are probably quite big, but I'd say primarily civilian shipping rather than military.
Absolutely. We'll have to talk at some point about why they're all there. But that gives us some good stuff. Our next thing is something that tells us about the fall. Let's come back to you, Alan. What is your landmark from the fall?
I think I'm going to go with a sight fouled by the betrayal that killed the present's faith in, it says us all, but I think it probably means you all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm going to come up with, because,
that seems like a good reading from your people. Yeah.
It's real. I think probably this is some kind of marshy area. Maybe it's a crater filled with marsh, and I'll try and find an appropriate shape for it. And oh yeah, that'll do. Oh, hang on, that's the lake. Sorry, I was thinking, gosh, I put that down without thinking. Yeah, so yeah, some kind of curvy location.
Feel free to freehand if you want to. You can always.
Yeah. Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yes. So leave that with me.
Okay. What do you want to call it?
The Blight.
The Blight. And so this is a sign of the turning away of the corruption?
It's probably the reason that these poor, innocent idiots found themselves lumbered with the fall. Quite what it is or was, I don't know. But certainly we believe that it's one of the defining reasons for the fall having happened here.
And well, let me ask you this then: what does it look like?
I think it probably is a depression filled with tar pits and marsh and biting insects. All those things that nobody would like, you find here. There be dragons.
Okay.
And if David doesn't object, I think I might have it bordering his Great Lake. Because that would explain why it's got all this water flowing through it.
That would make sense. You good with that, David?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I'll wait until you finish putting rivers on, and I'll put it in some kind of nexus of lake and river.
Sure.
Well,
Do
do you want it more towards the top or towards the bottom, closer to your sanctuary or further away?
I think at the minute I'm looking at, there is a river coming in from the north, or the top end of the map, to the right-hand side of the lake, and I'm thinking maybe the area where the lake and the river meet.
Okay, that seems good. Leandro, what is your landmark from the fall?
I'm torn between two choices. One of them simply because I want to use an explosion shape, so I might discount that because that seems frivolous. So I think it might be a vast alien ship intact but out of reach. It might be our scout ship, or the first one that we sent over here. And but why would it be out of reach? I think it's out of reach because I'm not entirely sure yet. I mean, for simplicity's sake, I might just take the explosion, but
Okay, well, it's up to you. What do you think?
I guess it depends on how I'd like to color how the dancing wave got here. If the explosion is the crater where the planetary defense center used to be, that would make us a bit more antagonistic, for sure. Then again, I did take the move body snatcher, so we might be antagonistic. We're locusts,
so what do you think?
Yeah, actually, I thought I'll take the crater.
Okay. Now you can use that explosion.
Yeah. Where to put that? I'm gonna put it. It's actually quite close to the sanctuary. I'll say, it's around here-ish. Oh, that's way too big.
Easy to reshape. So,
yeah. Oops, not there. Over here. Yeah. I think definitely ours. Body snatchers is the diplomatic move.
Yeah. So there used to be a planetary defense system. There used to be some sort of technology that protected this world, and it was destroyed in the fall.
Yes, and part of my thinking was like it was destroyed as a preemptive move by our folk, the dancing wave, because again, we've been shaped against I guess in our genetic history a lot of tragedy and a lot of like war, so we've kind of like been shaped into like not a warlike species, but like folks who like just we're doing what it takes to survive, and they have a defense system set up. How welcoming are they? I mean, yes, they did welcome us with a giant radio signal for sure, but that could be a trap. I mean, why would they do that and have a defense center? So we'll make the first move.
What is that place called now? What is that crater referred to as?
Let me see. I'm looking at my names document. No, that's my religious name. Sorry, I'm just looking at these names. Okay, that one I just used in that fail game, so I can't use that. I'll come back to that. I'll put in a name later.
Okay.
And
All right. That seems fair. That gives a space to go from. Rye, what is your landmark from the fall?
Right. I am using a spot where the laws of physics were unraveled. Didn't find a good spiral shape in there, but I think I'll just use the cloud. Not as fun as the explosion for sure, but I think what happened here is I'm going to locate it up here by the sanctuary a little bit, over one of the rivers, if that's okay. Some people call it like a place where magical energy is running rampant. Others call it a place where the laws of physics have unraveled. You enter there at your own risk, and sometimes things come out. Sometimes when you go in, nothing happens to you, but sometimes things do happen to you. Sometimes it's, they would have called it cancer. Before you grow odd things or things like that. Other times people have gone in and been healed miraculously of some illness. It's just a total crapshoot in there. And I think what it looks like is when you approach it, it's not cloud-like as in like a gray, misty cloud. It's kind of like almost like when your television screen fritzes out for a second and it's just kind of like static. But I think it's like if you could make that smoky.
Yeah.
And I'll come up with a snappy name for it in a second here.
Okay, sure. It's the color of a television set turned to a dead channel. Something like that. All right. Yeah. No, I like that. Does it move, or is it pretty static where it's at?
Yeah, maybe it does move. I like
Okay.
that. If it migrates, and I think it doesn't really have a speed. Maybe sometimes it's slow, and then sometimes you don't even notice, and it's moved a little bit.
This
farther.
strange, uncertain drift. I like that very much. David, what is your landmark from the fall?
Am I muted? No, I'm not. That's a surprise. I usually am. The one I'm going for is a sunken city, poison flowing through its streets.
Ooh.
So I think what happened here is I'm going to add this somewhere. I'll find a suitable spot. But I think what this looks like is it's almost like there was some sort of collapse actually in sort of the like the what you call it, like the water table underneath the city. So the city's actually, it's basically opened up a giant sinkhole that the city has fallen into, and that sinkhole has subsequently flooded. So it's kind of almost like an artificial lake.
So very, very low rent Atlantis.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And it's kind of, again, probably not too dissimilar to the blighted area. It's maybe not even necessarily all completely underground, but it is all like in this sinkholey water. It's not good water either. It's obviously, as I said, this poison flows through the streets, and so it's like there's obviously something wrong with the water here. I think it does. I think it's reachable from the some of the water courses, but it's kind of separate because it wasn't a sort of a natural water feature in the first place. There might have been that flowed through the city that has kind of taken some of the runoff from it. But yeah.
So what is it called? What is this name of the city?
I think I think it's I just blanked completely on what I was thinking there. I think it's called the I think it's just. I think it is known as the dead Maya, because nothing natural grows there.
I like it. And where is that going to be?
I think I will put that. I maybe put actually down towards the meld.
Okay.
But kind of, yeah.
Like there's a tributary that comes off that
exactly
runs towards that. Okay.
I will just find a suitably unpleasant color to.
Destiny's Rainbow. Okay, good. All right. Have you put that on the map? And we'll swing back around for threat. Now, the threat is probably the most active choice that you're going to make. It's something that your family will be dealing with, others will be dealing with, and we'll mark that on the map. Threats will change and evolve. So, what is the threat that you want to put on the map, Alan?
I'm torn between offenders sentenced to immortal suffering now escaped and hell-bent on revenge, and an earlier creation of the presence fundamentally flawed and incredibly potent. I think I'm going to go for offenders sentenced to immortal suffering now escaped and hell-bent on revenge. And I want to put them in a range of territory between the Dark Crystal and the rest of us. And
That's
I'm going to call
you can use a dotted line to distinguish a range there.
And I think I'm going to call them the Damned.
Okay. And were the damned condemned by the presence? Were they condemned by you before the fall? What's your connection to that?
I think that we know of them, and we know that they were damned by the presence. Whether they originated on this world and were damned by the dismissal of the presence by the locals, or whether they arrived with the Dark Crystal, I'm not certain.
And is there a distinguishing feature to them, or can they blend in with others? What do they look like? Are there four different kinds?
I've added a picture of one of them.
Oh,
to the NPC page.
Okay.
So they are tribal, primitive, and violent.
But also, strangely, in a parallel, also cloaked and also have these masks that people don't know.
Peculiarly cloaked and masked, yes.
Interesting.
But in a profoundly different way, of course.
Oh, yes. No. Easy to tell the difference between the two. I like it. All right. Yeah, so have you mark out their range on the map there. Leandro, what is your threat?
It's most likely going to be a rapidly expanding alien ecosystem.
Okay.
And I'm going to place it also in kind of like that territory between the Dark Crystal and the rest of us, probably somewhere further south.
Okay.
I think what's happening here is it's an accident that happens every now and then when the dancing wave comes to strip a world for itself.
Now, let me just take this: an accident or an accident?
No, I think it is a full-blown accident. I don't think it's
Okay.
an accident.
Okay.
I think it's a forest. And it's an accident because the dancing wave are cephalopods. They're more
Right.
involved in liquidy stuff. But like this is a forest of like wires and fiber optic cables and this nano gel just kind of like creating all this weird circuitry that's trying to claim the land. It's like, because the thing with the nano gel suits is the dancing wave takes great care of it, but like it's the sort of thing that like it can run amok for sure if it's been left like feed on resources. It's sort of problem that like there's a lot of conjecture amongst the dancing wave on why this happens. There's some people who say like, oh, Maybe this is why we've become such a warlike locusty race, because we're dependent on technology that has to consume to be kept alive, or something, to be kept stable or something like that. But it happens, and it's happening here now.
And what is this alien forest, this alien terraforming infection? What is it called?
Let's see. I figured out what the naming convention the dancing wave does. Like the planetary defense, they just call it the eye blinded. So that's their naming convention, basically the noun, verb subjected to it, or a verb or an adjective. So I think this forest is called the strife enduring. Ooh. And it's and unlike most forests, it's a perfectly shaped circle. It's just expanding outwards.
All right. Let's have you put that on the map.
Yep. There you go. Just gonna put there and color it black. There we go.
Rye, what is the threat that faces the enclave?
There is a ruin where the creations of science now rule. And I'm thinking this was a gigantic laboratory complex where some of this new magic came in right during the fall, and they had a bunch of test subjects there, and they were mutated and transformed, and I think have since gone on to breed and expand and populate the area.
And hostile to other groups then?
I think that they are territorial and hostile if threatened. I think mostly I think some of them are rather large, take a lot of resources to feed, and so they are constantly kind of scavenging their territories. So they don't.
The threat that they pose is more that they are running out of their resources and are starting to reach beyond.
Yeah, I think so.
Something else that represents their threat.
Yeah, I think, and maybe they're kind of bunny rabbitish, and they're reproducing quickly, and so there's many more of these things moving about. I'm thinking like most of these were animal subjects of some sort or another, and so they've kind of been mutated from that. So. And
where is this located at?
That will be down here below the eye blinded in that area.
Okay.
Our research facility.
And what do you want to call it?
The Warren.
Oh, that makes sense. And David, what is the threat that the pioneers are worried about?
Yeah, I think we're concerned about the massive volcano not far from the shore threatening eruption. Which just deciding where I want to put that. Actually, I think I'm going to put it like I think it's like a mostly underwater volcano.
Okay.
Here in the down towards the edge of the lake.
And what is the volcano called?
I think it is called I think it's referred to certainly just amongst the river folk as the kettle, because it's for a while now the water there has always been much hotter than the area around it. And, bubbling up so occasionally. That's getting more and more pronounced.
I like it. So that gives us a good set of things to work from. We're going to take about a 5-7 minute break. When we come back, we're going to do those history questions that will establish the relationships between the different families. We'll make a few other choices, and then we'll move on to character creation. All right? All right. Back.
I just moved around the dead mire a little bit, actually, because I thought it made sense because we'd had two like things crash into the planet over there. I thought it might make sense to have the collapsed city a bit closer to those.
That makes sense to me. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do our history, which is about getting the relationship and connections between our different families. And then the other thing that you can do sort of in between is you'll notice that you have a list of resources from that, I believe, and I think this holds true for most families. You'll need to choose 2 of those as surpluses, and the other 3 are as needs. And then the other thing to think about is the assets that's kind of related to that. Usually they'll be like, how do you fight? How are you defended? What special vehicles do you have? What useful expertise can you draw on? For most families, you'll choose 3 of those and answer 3 of those questions. There'll be one thing that you won't get. That's a mechanical thing in that when you've chosen those assets, when you zoom down to the character level, they tell us what your character can have on hand. Resources and assets are in the PDF playbooks and not on the family tab. They're not things you need to like necessarily tell us or go into right now, but they are things that will come into play. So let's start then with Alan. And we're going to look at the history questions. I think we'll have you do all 3 of your history questions. We'll go through it, and as we would do with standard relationship things, if you have an idea for who you think it's appropriate to, you can say that, or you can put it out there. What these are going to generate is treaty, and treaty is a currency that gets spent, as you know, later on. You can generate treaty that you have on them or that they have on you. So which of your history things do you want to start with?
There's one that I fairly obviously I think would target at the Seeds of Sunset.
Okay.
Because it's called well, it reads, which one of you renewed our faith in the future? Give them 2 treaty on you, and they describe the holiness expressed in their doctrine.
Ooh.
So, Rai, how do you feel about that one?
Sounds perfect. Yeah. So the holiness described in our doctrine. I think clearly humanity has shown that it's flawed in that we led to the destruction of this world in some way or another. But there's also hope to be found in many of our failings and lessons to be learned. And when we come together and we build communities and we work on projects together, we can create new things. And from those new things can come hope and wonderment, and sometimes even joy when we're lucky.
And that is why our faith in the future has been restored.
Nice.
So you have 2 treaty on the Sky Children. The other 2 are a bit trickier. Which of you, so I'll put them both out there, put your hands up. Which of you worship the presence before the fall? You say whether you still believe, but come what may, you give me 2 treaty. And which of you helped us, the Sky Children, vanquish a terrible monster? I'll say how we hunted it down, and you will say how you dealt the final blow. And we'll exchange treaty. So what are we thinking?
I think I'm interested in the worship the presence before the fall. I wouldn't say all of the dancing wave here worship the presence. I think definitely a lot of groups, as part of their existential answer as to why the hell did we become this group of stellar locusts, part of them probably, and I think specifically this group here that's on Earth, did turn to the presence, as if to say, like, well, we used to be just, idiots floating around in an ocean, or at least that's what history claims. But maybe we were meant to be shaped and sharpened and create this technology that lets us adapt and change to different environments for a higher purpose, for a chance to either worship or safeguard the presence, or like adhere to what I guess the choir of the presence claimed to be. I'm not sure like how they came across the presence, or at least the idea of the presence out in space. But again,
the presence is everywhere.
Jesus, here we go
It's
again.
like the book, the tome. Sorry.
Yeah, damn tome. Yeah, and I think I'm not sure if they still believe. I think at this point in time, even specifically this group, they've filed the presence. It's just, it could be an explanation, but like we're at a point where we just keep going forward. That we can't really afford to sit down and really think about it. But we know of the presence, and so we know of the Sky Children.
So I mean, it sounds to me like to say that the wave believes isn't right.
Yes. See, I'm imagining the wave is not like, it's not like a monoculture where the wave as a whole believes. The wave is a wave. It's a big it's a big conglomerate where the only defining thing that keeps them together is that they move forward. They're a wave,
Okay, well, the ripple that constitutes the family in front of us.
Yes, I think they worship the presence for sure.
Okay. So I will take 2 treaty on you then.
Mm-hmm.
And that leaves which of you helped the children vanquish a terrible monster?
Yeah, I think that can definitely have been the river folk. It's not really like they're stuck in trade, but if something threatened the homeland, they definitely step up to deal with it. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's probably something that was in the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that we were able to identify where it was, but you were the only people who could get to it. Maybe on the slopes of the kettle.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, some sort of what those you get those like extremophile creatures that like live in underground volcanoes like that, but the size of the size of a truck maybe.
Fine, we exchange treaty, so we get
Excellent.
one.
Cool.
And then that brings us to Leandra.
I'm in the wrong tab. Give me a second. Okay. So my first question is, which one of you controls a resource critical to our survival? And they take a 2 treaty on me. I think probably the resource that the Dancing Wave is most concerned about is ways to like replenish their nano gel suits, and I think the resource created from that is probably some sort of organic matter, for sure. So I could see any one of these three. Maybe
some form of algae, maybe.
Yeah, some sort of like. I think it's not just like a form of algae. I think it's different kinds of algae that the wave then kind of like processes into this nano paste.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I was going to say that's definitely something that we could provide. I think the river folk, I think, like I said, what they do a lot of like aquaculture and that sort of thing. So I think that could certainly work. And because you're semi marine-ish anyway, it's maybe the best way of growing whatever it is that you need. Whether or not it's actually water on your home planet or not, who knows? But
some sort of liquid. Hell yeah!
And your next one?
Yeah, next one is: which of you did we save from certain doom with our technology? Now, who wants to be saved by a bunch of space squids?
I'd much rather be experimented on by you.
Okay, all right.
Well spoken.
Because I think perhaps that this explains why the waves' relationships to the presence is ambiguous.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get to that when we get to that question. But yeah, how do you think? How do you think the wave helped out seeds?
So can you read it to me one more time? You saved us from
certain doom with our technology.
Certain doom. Yeah, I think we were experimenting and pushing the limits of our work with this new energy, and there was some sort of magical illness that started coming through, or technological illness that we didn't understand, but you guys had seen it on other places before. And so you provided us the recipe for how to create the cure for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. And like I want to add that like part of that cure, it did involve making use of some of our precious nano gel on you. That's basically become their technology now.
Totally, yeah, nano gel for sure.
Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah, because it had like the energy in it to bore through and consume the excess energy there. Yeah, cool.
Hell yeah! So I take one treaty on you. Okay, and yeah. So experimentation. I should actually read the question. Which of you did we secretly experiment on in the past? Yeah, I wonder why the relationship between the wave and the presence is a bit fraught. Maybe there was a time when and I think this is part of what the wave does. When they thought they figured out why they become like this, they try to, they ask questions just a bit too forcefully and maybe experiment a bit too vigorously. Again, it's a wave. They keep moving forward. Maybe your presence is inside them. Yeah, thanks, David.
And yeah, because it that would work, wouldn't it? Because it would explain why you weren't certain, and having done the experiments, you're now more certain than you were.
Yeah. So you get one more treaty on me. Jesus, 3 overall. Wave's gonna owe some debts. Jesus.
One of the things we have found, by the way, through a long-term play is that people tend to build up treaty. It tends to actually accumulate. There are a couple of valves for spending it. They require kind of a pressure. They're an aggressive use to use the treaty. We've added in a move that allows you to kind of spend treaty to give yourself a bonus on another roll. So that I'll talk about that when we get to play. But we've added some additional uses of treaty to make it a more useful resource. So that's all 3 of yours, right, Leandra? And you didn't come out being entirely horrible. from your people, but just a little.
Yeah, there was one question we had to save. Family, so.
Rye, let's talk about the Enclave's history questions.
All right. Which one of you is civilization's best chance to regrow? I was thinking possibly the presence or the river folk here, but
the presence is certainly raising his hand.
I think the presence is very keen to be the last best hope.
All right. What can you detail a little bit more there? What you envision civilization to look like in the future?
Well, of course, the presence will be central to it, as will its fundamental positive ethics. And I think in the same way that you have given the children faith in the future, that relationship is two-way. So while you give us faith, we perhaps give you access to a greater understanding of the presence and therefore of the forces you are playing with. Is that
cool?
Why?
Yeah, that's cool. So you get 2 treaty on us, on the seeds. All right. Which one of you has seen the true power of our technology or magic? I guess in this case.
It's probably the wave then, if we helped you out, because you experimented a bit too far. But we saw, Jesus, these seeds, folks. They're poking at something that seems quite revelatory. I mean, yeah, sure, it created disease that we kind of seen before, but I think we noticed it's a sort of disease that shouldn't be on this sort of biome, this sort of planet, this sort of space. Like we've seen it in more non-Euclidean places before. So for it to show up here means the seeds are like, yeah, they're poking at something that maybe the wave thinks they don't understand.
Okay. Fair enough. So we take 2 treaty on each other.
Okay. So that leaves the last one, which is which of you holds the brightest mind of the homeland? And that goes to the river folk. Tell me about this amazing savant.
This is interesting, and this may touch on characters when we come in later, because I already had an idea for this. One of the cultural features of the river folk, because of their nomadic nature, because they live on water, they don't, they have books, they have written records and stuff, but not necessarily in great quantity. But there is a role in the fleet that is essentially almost to be like a kind of living repository of knowledge. They memorize information, but also seek out the written words and stuff like that. The current holder of it is actually quite young. I'll have a conversation that like when we come to it, but it's a fairly young person. They have basically recently taken over the position from the previous holder who has died. There's a sort of almost like a reincarnation element to it. But yeah, they are purported to be a great font of wisdom and hidden lore.
Okay, you get 1 treaty on us.
Sure thing.
Awesome. Which brings us to the river folk. What are your history questions?
I'm using myself too early. Yes. So my first question is, which of you is partly descended from pioneers who turned their back to the sea, or the rivers in this case.
I think that's difficult for the Sky Children because we're relatively late arrivals.
Yeah, I don't know if the secret of the river folk is that they're descended from space squids.
And this is one of those cases where we get a question that kind of may not fit with the setup of the other things. So feel free to look at some of the other playbooks if you're like this isn't necessarily going to fit with the Enclave. It may, but I just wanted to say that you have some room on that.
Sure thing. I'll move on to the next question anyway, and then we can loop back on that or find something else should the need arise. So yeah, the next one is which one of you was our sole contact with Drylanders for a long time? What happened to reveal our existence to the other families? This may be a bit more because we don't actually live like below the water. This might be a bit slightly less dramatic than the phrasing of that, but
I could see the Enclave being that connection that we're kind of nomadically traveling around and knew of your existence. And let's see, why did we bring you to the attention of the others? Is that the second part of that?
Yeah, or what happened to bring us to the attention of the others? But yeah, but broadly that.
I think let's go back to that the thing that you had to kill, right? On the edge of the volcano. Maybe we helped recruit you to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you take 2 treaty on us. And the next one is which of you hosts a brilliant explorer who relies on our secrets?
That seems like it could be the children.
Yeah.
And it might explain that relationship between the secrets you knew of how to kill that thing and our exploratory finding of it.
Certainly. So I take 1 on you for that. I'm just going to go and have a look in one of the other playbooks that might have something suitable. Bear with me 1 second. I was actually thinking, Leandro, if this works for you, if maybe if I rephrase the one that I had slightly, so it's less that you're descended from us, but maybe we were your first point of contact when you arrived on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's probably maybe in the river folk there are like talks of like because I'm imagining like the wave got to here before the fall at least, but maybe in the stories of the river folk there are like these mentions of these like weird plasticine people who made contact with them and helped them out, and in exchange for algae. And there's like, well, not say the wave or the secret origin of the river folk, but like there's definitely like there's a story passed around that like. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, old sailor's lore sort of thing about strange fishmen and that. Yeah, no, that's cool. So yeah, we take one treaty on each other for that.
Cool. All right. So this is going to bring us over to the character creation side of things. Let me talk briefly about what that is going to involve. You will choose a playbook for your character, and within that character playbook, you'll have a choice of stat lines. Each of the playbooks has different stat lines. You'll also get an inheritance from your family playbook, usually a +1 to one of two stats. It'll be a choice on that. Backstory is our relationship questions. One of the other things you're going to choose at the start for your character, and these vary by character playbook, is a role. There are 5 roles because I've added one in from the Engine of Life supplement to Prophet. These roles are, you're going to start with one marked, and it will give you something that you can call on in that first session. As you go along, you'll change roles, and that's how you advance your character. That's how you get a new move when you change roles. And you'll have the option to change roles when the Wheel of Time shifts as well. So that's keep in mind. Let me see what else I want to say about that for the character creation thing. So you can copy the role moves from the playbook over into that thing. The other thing that's going to be different for each character, and I didn't put this in the tab, but you'll find it in the PDF, is everybody has different harm track. So you'll want to copy those 5 levels in from a character. So I'm going to let you go ahead and get started. When you look at your, and actually we should probably have people say what they're going to choose here in a second. We'll do that before we move on. The other thing is on the playbooks, you can always choose one of your quick characters moves. The quick characters that are available, they have moves for the families. You can take a move from there rather than one of your own moves. That is an option. One of the things I'll do between this session and next is I'll get the drop downs for everybody's quick character based on their family, put in the sheet so that's easy to do. So let's go reverse order. David, what are you thinking about for your playbook?
Yeah, as I sort of intimated it just now, I was considering a historian if people are happy with that.
Is that cool with everybody? Does that work for you, Rye? Okay, I just want to make sure. So yeah, okay, historian. Rye, what are you thinking?
I was thinking I'd start with the scavenger or the seeker.
Ooh, those are both good. What are you thinking, Leandro?
It's either gonna be the envoy or the firebrand.
Well, that's 2 sides of a coin right there. All right. And Alan, what were you thinking?
I think to stay on tune here, we'll go Saint.
Okay. Well, it doesn't seem like anybody has any overlap, so I'll let you get to thinking about that and making those choices. There was one other thing I was going to tell you about, and I will now have forgotten it for a bit. But go ahead and get started on that. What I'll do is in about give you a chance to make those choices in about in a few minutes. Then we'll have people do introductions, and that'll allow us then to move to backstory questions. that was the other thing I wanted to mention is, and you've all played this a little bit, so you know, but I'll remind you of this. When you think about your character, you as a player are going to have the ability to make the choices for your family. And the default assumption in Legacy is that your character has that authority within the family, but that isn't necessary. They can be, it can be split on the meta level. You're making those choices, but your character might not be agreeing with those. So that's one thing you're going to want to think about. Your role is going to affect that. It's an interesting decision to have in your head there.
I've had second thoughts on Saint. Saint isn't quite what I'd anticipated. It seems to rely on a regular supply of disasters. And, you know, it's a little narrower. I'll go Seeker instead.
Does that work for you, Rye? Okay. All right. David, I'm going to have you start and tell us about your character, what their name is, and what they're like, and what moves you've chosen.
Certainly. So yeah, as I said, I am playing the historian playbook. I'm playing a young man whose name is Dew on Meadows. He is, as I said, he's male. I've chosen 2 youthful here. I know we've got a line on violence against children specifically, so I'm going to say it's probably like a teenager, probably a fairly sort of young teenager, but yeah, sort of capable of sort of taking care of himself. Put it that way.
He's a YA character.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. He's got squinted eyes from reading lots of books. He speaks in a quiet voice, nothing but whispers, and he wears tattoos and rags. Rags is probably a bit harsh for what he wears, but yeah, said he wears as is traditional. Certainly when he's with the fleet, just those very like loose wrappings, like sheer wrappings. He has all over his body. He has undulating black tattoos, or at least that's what they look like from first glance. As you get closer to him, it's not solid black. It is lots and lots and lots of lines of very, very dense text tattooed all over his body. It's almost like it's almost not quite to the extent of microfiche, but it's you need a magnifying glass essentially to actually read the text. It's that sort of finely detailed on there, and it's essentially there are excerpts of like oral history and sort of lore of the river folk on there, as well as what's almost like an index to a library on there, sort of some names of books and things like that tattooed into his flesh. He I think that he's going to be starting off in the agent role.
Oh, okay.
Which is when your family's survival is uncertain. Tell us about a forbidden tome, which might just turn the tide. And the GM will tell me about the book's current guardians.
Excellent. We'll get that set in session 1.
Yeah, that's cool. As I think that's his primary concern at the moment. The moves that I have taken. Well, one of them is set for the historian. It's called Library of Babel. And this means that whenever I witness data being gained or spent, I can quote a tome that's in some way related to the subject of what's happening, essentially. Each time I see that, I can reveal an additional detail about the tome, which include its title, its author, its topic, and its format. Each time I sort of fill out one of those details, essentially each time I see lore being gained or spent, I gain a point of wisdom, which powers some of my moves. And when I discover that tome, then I can cash in some of that wisdom for lore again.
And you're making the correct adjustments. Lore, this is when I did the fantasy version of that, you used lore instead of data. You're right on it being data. Thank you.
So I switched between the two there. But yeah, and the other move I have taken is Kings and Labyrinths, which is when another character agrees to bring me a tome that I've identified in the thing above. I can spend a point of wisdom and grant them an additional role. There are 2 roles here. One of them is basically for them to find the book. One of them is for them to bring the book to me. And if they fulfill that role, it's like fulfilling another role, essentially, that they get an advance for that.
That is very nice. Is Dew on Meadows unusual? I mean, amongst the family, is this scholarship striking?
Yes,
Okay.
as I said, he is a it's an almost religious, but not quite religious. It's more a philosophy amongst the river
Okay.
folk than a religion, but he's a kind of traditional thing. They said he inherited the position from the forerunner. It's not kind of like, there's an element of like reincarnation to it. It's not quite the kind of Dalai Lama type setup, but it's of a similar sort of idea. There's actually some crossover in when the two holders of the position are alive, but that there's that sort of period of training, and he's recently taken over the role after the passing of the previous law master, whose name I will record, but it's Brooks Song Babbles.
Excellent. That brings us to Rye. Rye, tell us about your character.
All right. Not 100% finished here, but we'll go with what we got.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, but it's the first root that comes out of a seed is, I think, called a radicil. So he's one of the first people they send out into a new area to kind of look for new technology or magical artifacts and things that they can turn into technology. And he's the fourth in a long line of scavengers that work for the seeds, or are part of the seeds. It's a little bit hard to tell whether what gender they are, mostly because they are wearing a gas mask kind of face. And I found an image, but I have not had a chance to upload it yet. But I'll get that in the.
Are we using they, them for the pronouns?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll use them, they, them for the pronouns. They, as I said, they get sent out into new areas looking for technology and are very good at kind of, even if an area has been kind of blasted apart or overgrown, of finding ways in and ways out of different areas and plotting ways to bring this technology back to the seeds for later use. I think that's about all I've got so far.
Okay. You're thinking about your moves. So that's cool. Yeah, but that definitely gives us a sense, so we can build on your history from there. So I'm cool with that. And I do want to say this too. This actually brought up a really good point. When we get to play after like the first like actual play session, if you go, I don't like these moves that I picked, we're gonna have the chance to change them around. So don't feel like anybody like you're locked in on those. So I just want to say that is open and available.
Do you want me to go over my moves now, or?
Well, what have you thought about?
Sure. I was going to take Architectural Eye, so that's me seeing the kind of ways in and around and old architecture and knowing how to get in and out of it. And then Scrap Heap Ingenuity. So when I spent a few hours wiring stuff up, so a little bit MacGyver-y there.
That's a great one. That's a really fun one.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Scrap Heap Ingenuity, is it a mechanical thing, or do you think your family is using some of those strange powers?
Yeah, I definitely think there's both of that too. Like, I think that he's probably not as, I think he's a little bit odd for the scavengers in the group, or a little bit odd for the seeds. A lot of them are more in tune with the magic, but he's actually kind of less able to do kind of big magic, and so focuses a lot on kind of the day-to-day survival stuff. But he does kind of have, like, I think, or they have kind of a tingling sensation when they get around stuff that they're looking for, and they can kind of reach out for it and stuff like that.
I like it. All right. We'll come back to you on the backstory questions. So Leandro.
Yeah, so my character is named Soft. Uses she, they pronouns. Soft is short for all soft and still and fair. That dancing wave names, at least this group, kind of come from sensations they felt when they were born. So they don't get names until like they can articulate what they felt, and it's usually like the first thing they come up with. It's so soft. Remembers everything being like just nice and calm, which is ironic because she's using the Firebrand playbook. So things are not calm for her. Her look is ambiguous. I'm imagining definitely like I'm a bit inspired by this art of the Firebrand used in the game, which is like big cloak, hooded sort of figure. Imagining yeah, she does kind of look like what I guess what the Mad Max equivalent of a ninja would look like. Hooded and gloved and cloaked, and I think she's mostly like keeps herself hidden because when you see like the suit that she's wearing, it does look quite plasticine. It's not one of those prized heirloom nanogel suits. It's one that she got off the cheap, so to speak. So like she has a friendly face, but it's quite stiff. It's hard to like finally manipulate. I'm imagining the way the wave kind of like it is kind of like a mech suit. So like there's like controls inside. Well, great, now I have to imagine what the inside of these suits look like. I imagine it's quite fluid inside. There's a lot of controls, and controlling it is a case of jumping around inside the cavity and kind of like making sure that even with like so many tentacles, there's not so much you can control, especially if it's a cheap suit, like the one that Soft has. But even so, through the stiff, friendly face, which I'm imagining it does look quite soft and round. She looks doll-like, I suppose. So she looks quite young and plasticine, but her eyes are kind of like passionate. If you want me to describe what she actually looks like inside the suit, like I can figure that out. But
no, I'm good.
okay, all right. Move I took for her is like the secret army. When you spend a few days training rebels in an area, you don't have any followers, so she'll get followers. She can gain followers of one quality. So yeah, I think Soft is definitely someone who is. You get this every now and then, the wave, who thinks they figured out why the wave is like this. Why are we this group of people who kind of come into planets and break things down? And I guess Soft didn't come up with an answer. Instead, she just decided she doesn't even want to answer that question. She just decided, no, we're just not gonna be like that. Yes, we have these technologies that basically put us down this path of like assimilation and infiltration and just taking things over from underneath. But we don't have to do that. Like, yes, I've got this cheap suit that I can reshape to talk with, to interact with other people, or to like hide within them. But I don't have to do that. I can be whatever shape I want and just interact with them. That's just the case. And like, she's someone who's more interested in building bridges rather than blowing up planetary defense centers. So that's why her role is kind of like an outsider.
Okay.
She's still part of the family, but like I think she's definitely like someone like the wave, kind of like, yeah, you're still a part of us because we have no choice. We're in this planet that there's only us and versus them, that sort of thing. But Soft is not interested in holding to that. She's interested in like actually changing. She thinks for all the wave thinks that like, oh, we change and adapt to where we are. We don't really. We hold to like this code, this idea. We don't really change, and she wants to actually change that.
And so we'll next time we'll find out what principle you want to set for that. I see you took the complimentary iconoclast move there. That certainly fits.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not just the dark authorities in her family. Y'all probably have some bad seeds, so to speak.
Okay, that seems fair. We'll come back to you on backstory. Rye, did I miss your role?
Yeah, I was going for prophet. Mark, when you hunt for a mystic or symbolic beast in order to change the world in a subtle and mysterious ways. You get to add
Excellent.
obstacles and limitations to ritualize the hunt.
Excellent. We'll figure out what your questing beast is next time. I'm looking forward to that. Alan, let's have you tell us about your character.
Okay, so in the end, I opted for the Seeker playbook, and the Sky Children's Seeker in this occasion is Quartz that is flawed. I've given him he, him, because of his masculine build, because they are swathed in these dark cowled robes. All we know about him, heavy boots and gauntlets with a mask pierced by glowing red eyes, otherwise swathed in dark cowled robes. I do need your help with interpreting some of the inheritance here.
Sure.
Your characters replace any harm slot other than dead with bathed in blinding light. I'm not sure if that's just a descriptive one or whether it means that stuff like winded, fearful, feverish disappears.
Let me take a look at that as you go on. I'll look in the book itself here.
I've opted for the rebel role. I'll come back to that one when you finish looking some stuff up.
Sure.
Because I need help with that one. Gia, when I tool up, also gain a device you recently recovered from the wasteland and say what defenses you set off in the process. As the moves, I've gone for a curative admixture. When you improvise a high-tech treatment, and I'm wondering if this is high-tech or spiritual, but we can think about that when push comes to shove.
The inheritance, what it is normally you would get a bad modifier for that. So like you could take your harm level 4, which would like maybe give you a -1 to your force. You can replace that with bathed in blinding light, so you don't actually take a penalty.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
it essentially gives you an extra harm slot that doesn't cause you any problems.
Oh, right. So I can replace any one of those at some point. I'm with you. Okay. Yeah. I filled that in wrong. I'll make some changes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to opt for the rebel role. Mark when your people cut ties to a family or faction. Tell us of the disaster that hits this family or faction. Leave at once to provide them much needed aid.
And one of the things we're going to do next time is everybody's going to come up with an NPC faction. So we'll populate with those. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a PC faction.
And I can't. Oh yeah. So that moves curative admixture, and experimental energy projector. Not, Leandro will be pleased to know, in the shape of a book. You have several chunks of scavenge technology wired together into a deadly, if unstable weapon, ranged, area, aberrant, unreliable. When you fiercely assault with it, roll plus lore instead of plus force, and then choose one of the side effects. Instead of, unlike some inheritances where you get +1 to a trait, instead I get to pick one of the inheritance moves. So I've picked the Martyr. When you head into hostile grounds, say one blessing your family has that gives you lasting advantage on one stat while there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That works. Let us swing back around. We have the backstory questions. This is the last thing we're going to do today. Is we're going to get through those, and we're going to come back to David. Much as we did the relationship, we've got three backstory questions, and you may know who you want to have or not. These are purely fictional position questions. They don't have a mechanical impact. So, David, where do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to start with. Well, if I'm going to start with the first one, which I'm going to tweak ever so slightly.
Sure.
It was the first question is I was somebody's tutor, though I'm going to phrase that in very much the royal eye, probably in the sense that my predecessor was someone's tutor.
Okay. And who would that be?
You go ahead. Go on.
I was thinking maybe Radisson, since they weren't really doing well with the larger magics, was kind of sent out into the world to learn more about the other cultures and form bridges with them. And so maybe came to you to learn the ways of your people. But if someone else has another idea, I'm happy to step aside.
Yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. I will.
I like it.
So I'll just make a quick. No, that's I haven't.
And Rye, should you have one more surplus for Radisson for the family?
I erased it to take
okay.
extra area of knowledge.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure on that.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
My next one is, if not for blank, I would have died on that expedition.
Who saved you, Radisson?
I'm happy to step into that one.
Sure thing. That sounds good.
And then let's talk about your last one.
Yeah. So my last one is blank once stole a cursed book.
Bring it back. Stealing is a harsh verb to use. Like I said, I'll bring it back at some point. I'm not done with it.
But it does fit. That seems good. Rye, let's look at your backstory questions.
Sure. First one is, I need to volunteer for blank has much to learn about life in the wasteland.
Oh yeah, that's definitely definitely due, I think.
Okay. Next one is blank is why I come back to civilization.
Could be soft. One thing I forgot to mention is that she's passionate and quite talkative to a lot of people. She likes to build those bridges, for sure.
Makes sense. A sense of curiosity that you both have.
All right. Then the last one is blank shares my lust for discovery.
Oh, that fits very nicely.
Yeah.
Right. Quartz, certainly.
Quartz. Right. Those are
Excellent. Mine. And then Leandro?
Yeah, so the first one is I respect blank's concern for others. I think soft would respect who has the most concern for others. Who would that be?
That might be me because of the presence.
Yeah.
Certainly a focus on innocence and protecting the innocent.
Mm-hmm. The other one, the second one I'm gonna leave for last because it's quite harshly phrased. The next one I'll call it is blank can teach me to understand this new world. Ooh.
I think that could be due, but yeah, equally, if
yeah,
you were my tutor, so you might as well be teaching everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I might lean towards. Do you want to? Okay, I guess it depends on like how I want to answer that other question, which is again harsh. I should put for anyone who's watching. The other question is blank has grown fat on the backs of others' labor, which is quite harsh.
And as we said before, if that one doesn't quite fit, feel free to modify or find another one.
I mean, it's you could argue it's certainly true to an extent of of Dew. I'd also argue it's probably a fairly unfair reading of his position, but it's certainly, he doesn't labor. He is.
It's kind of like a cultural misunderstanding, right? Because
I'm trying to figure out how to rephrase it so that it fits more like a cultural misunderstanding. It's more like Jew
appears to have grown fat.
Appears? No. I'll rephrase it, but I think I like that general idea of like Jew doesn't seem to be putting in the work, or at least I don't understand Dew's position in his family, and how I don't understand how Dew's position helps benefit the world.
Interesting.
So I think Radisol, because it seems like we're buds apparently since you come back to civilization for me. I think Soph will consider that Radisol will have a lot to teach her about the world.
And that's all three for you, right? Okay. Alan, what are Quartz's backstories?
Okay, well, the three of them, just so you've got them all on the table in front of you. I fear X hates what they don't understand. X can guide me to the truth. X would soon be lost without my technology. And as in all things, I am bracketing faith.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one guide around the table, isn't there? What do you think, Dew? Do you want to guide me to the truth?
Yeah, that sounds good. I was thinking that did sound like an appropriate one.
I have a suspicion that that Radisol might fear what they don't understand.
That could be, and maybe that's why they've kind of stayed away from the higher magical arts. It's fine.
Okay. And that
a hesitation in using it. Interesting.
And that suggests that Soft would soon be lost without my technology, bracket faith.
Oh no, it's another one of your characters telling me the way of the good.
But it may be what you believe. This is what you believe, not necessarily what is true.
Exactly. And I think we probably see, unlike our previous characters, Soft would know about the presence, because this part of the wave has worshipped the presence in the past. And I don't know, does Quartz think that like we've just mislaid? We were there, we're so close to getting the right answer, but like
and with time and patience.
All right.
Respect the presence.
So what we're going to do at the start of next session is we're going to check in on everybody's characters. If people want to make changes on their families or on their personal characters, you can make it at that point. We'll come up with another NPC faction to put on the map, and we'll go over the map to remind us where everybody's at. And then we will get started playing. Usually I do the wishes and thorns and roses at every other session with a longer play. So we'll take time to do that at the end of next session. If anyone has questions or anything you want to go over between sessions, feel free to send me an email and I'll be glad to answer those. Anything anyone wants to ask or say before we wrap for today?
On the roles,
Sure.
For my character, they were different than what you had in the character tab, and then I think those are different in the scavenger than what's in the PDF. So I got a little confused, and I had chosen one, and now I'm not sure I should use that one.
Oh, let me look. I can actually check that really quickly here, and make sure where we're at on that. So the scavenger roles are in here. Mark when you put in charge of a group's supplies. Mark when the group relying on you finds crucial component. Mark when someone convinces you that your family is hoarding resources. And mark when your horde starts whispering to you. So those are
Okay.
right. The ones that are in the
Okay.
thing there. I probably ended up having like an artifact of the copy and paste earlier that was in the thing. So the ones that are in the long tab
Okay, cool.
should be great. Thank you all very much. I'm pumped and super excited to see where this goes. I love these characters already. I'm looking forward to seeing how the families smack up against each other. What they typically suggest in the book, and what we will do, is we'll probably start with the characters together in at least that first scene, and then we'll see how we spin out from there. They suggest everybody together dealing with one of the threats, so we'll probably follow that lead. All right. Thank you all very much. And I will see everybody next week. And I'm going to stop. Is everybody cool with me posting our session 0? Okay, excellent. Then I'm going to stop the live stream.